Good morning, pretty lights. Now, let's get into it. So, today you and I are going to talk about design and the lessons, or rather the secret lessons, that learning design and design practices are going to teach you as a programmer. Now, odds are that if you are just starting out, well, this is actually applicable for people who aren't just starting out, but maybe you have a little bit of seniority, maybe you're a little bit experienced when it comes to developing stuff, and maybe you're interested in front-end programming because, as you may or may have guessed, design, for the most part, at least the UX design, has to do with the front end of an application. Anywho, so when you start working your way through your career and you start learning more and more programming and so forth, odds are that sooner or later you're going to find yourself in a position where you have to implement a design of some sort. Go figure, right? And the thing is that in today's world, there are very standardized practices for certain UI components. Now, one of my favorite libraries to get a kind of feel for what's very popular today in the design world is Material Design, provided to us by the good people at Google. They are not, of course, an exclusive thing or anything like that, but the thing is that today you may not think about it all that much, but there's a trend which is called atomic design, or rather, don't quote me on that, but I'm pretty sure it's called atomic design. And the basic principle is that it used to be that as a designer you would design an entire page or an entire flow as a single entity. But today it's much more common that designers create basically atom components or component libraries, and they break these things out in, for example, Sketch app uses a symbol system where you literally pluck out every single icon, makes up an atom, and then you can make a molecule by composing that together with other components. So you very, very gradually think of it in the programming world as our trend with functional composition, where a small function together with another function makes a bigger function, and then you kind of build it from there. It's the exact same idea, same principle. And the power with this to this insight is that you will very quickly realize that, hey, there are a lot of standardized components that are very popular. Now, I'll give you a simple example. The hamburger menu on mobile devices. That's a very common, extremely common way of approaching a design problem or a UX problem, solving navigation on a mobile device. And why is this important? Because there's so many, like the bottom navigation bar is also another one, and you have things like jumping icons. They are not as common, just they are there. So why is this important? Well, for us programmers, this is actually really, really useful because it tells you where you should spend your time practicing. Now, hear me out. Odds are that you are either starting out and you're just learning things, and then this becomes even more important, or you're an experienced programmer, but you still need to practice somehow, because trust me, this is a type of a maintenance kind of deal. I practice things as well. I have to keep myself up to date with technologies and techniques for doing certain things because it's constantly moving, right? And to those of you who are just starting out, this is a great and powerful insight, because when you're just starting out, you have no idea what should you do. I didn't know that. I remember at my first job, which was virtually a design-driven company. It was a complete design company. And they had all these processes and really senior designers who gave me all these different things I needed to build. But the problem was I didn't have the experience or the practice to implement a lot of the behaviors that they as designers thought that everybody knows this, right? Everybody knows how to make a transition animation for a hamburger menu very smooth and so forth and so on. But I didn't know that. I had no idea. I didn't know any of it. So this is my tip to you. if you learn basic design and learn what's trendy in the design world, it will give you a really great roadmap for where you should start practicing building these things. I'll even tell you, go right now and say, Google, let's take hamburger menus, for example. How to animate hamburger menus, for example. Odds are that you are going to get to CSS Tricks or like some of the bigger websites, and they will tell you that, hey, when you're animating something, you should, like, this is the way that you write that code, this is the way how you structure that component, and odds are that you're going to get a very nice insight, which is, hey, you shouldn't use left or the positioning system to animate in and out the menu. You should use translate or the 3D translate property. And the reason why that is because that is going to render on the GPU layer of the computer, which is much more performant than what we used to do a few years ago. And if you didn't know that, you just had that insight by simply researching a very common component. And now your knowledge about how to build hamburger menus are really up to date, and you can produce a very common UI component much faster and more efficiently than most of the people who don't consider design as a part of useful knowledge to be a better programmer. So the reason why I highly encourage you to have a look at these things, because although if you're just trying to figure out how to keep yourself up to date and be a better front-end developer, this is a great starting point. Just learn the basic popular components and how to implement them in an efficient manner, because trust me, it gets so much easier if you've done a little bit of research ahead of time, so that when you need to do it for real, you know your stuff, you know the theory, you don't have to be an expert, but you have a good understanding of what your design colleagues are going to ask for when you work together with them, when you work with them. And that's very powerful. That's like having, it's so much better than being, I'm not going to say arrogant, because it's not arrogance, but being a little bit lazy and thinking that, hey, I'm a programmer, I'll just solve it. Trust me, yes, you are probably a good programmer, and this has nothing to do with skill. This has to do with figuring, because you can't learn everything. And it will take you a long time to master front-end development to the point where you literally you kind of just intuitively know how to solve every problem. So this is a great way to get started on that road. So do what I highly suggest you do. You go to Material UI or whatever, or you talk with somebody who does a lot of UX work and so forth, and there are other resources as well. And you look at the common trends in front-end, in UX, in design, in UI design, and you find these natural components, and then you Google how to build these components. Look for recent content, and what's going to happen is that you are going to master very quickly how to build extremely pleasant experiences through learning one component and then the next component and so forth and so forth. So I hope this was useful to you. I do it myself. I absolutely love design. I wish I was better at it, but I am practicing in it. I'm trying to practice as much as I can, and I highly encourage you to do that as well, because it will make you a better programmer, and even more importantly, it will make you a better problem solver.